Nintendo just released their latest financial information, and we thought we would go through all of it and see what it means for Nintendo, what it means for the Nintendo Switch, and also what it means for Switch 2.
Yeah, these results cover the third quarter of the fiscal year, which is for the rest of the world, the fourth quarter, which is the big holiday selling season, which we spent so much time talking about how, that's such a big time of year for Nintendo. So it's interesting to look and see how it actually panned out. Maybe not the results they were hoping for this year in particular, but still a lot of interesting things to sort through. I think right off the bat, one of the things that's really interesting is this ongoing watch of Nintendo Switch as it inches closer and closer to Nintendo DS and the PS2, which are the two best-selling game systems of all time. And now the Switch has passed the 150 million unit mark. Wow. Great accomplishment. And It's getting closer to these other two. So the DS is at 154. PS2 is at 160. And remember, PS2 was... Jim Ryan found a couple extra, receipts in his couch. That got bumped up recently. So about 10 million to go if they want to pass the PS2. I promise you, this is not something Nintendo is losing any sleep over. They'll sell the systems they sell. They want to sell as many as they can, but whether they pass the PS2, I don't see them losing sleep over this.
Yeah, I don't think so either. It is kind of cool to see the numbers get kind of closer and closer together. I actually think Nintendo's probably more interested in the metric of whether or not Nintendo Switch will pass the DS. That's like their own bar that they've set for themselves. So they're very, they're very internal sort of, we do our own thing, we beat our own records kind of company. So yeah, I can see them feeling pretty good about, being only about 4 million, a little less than 4 million away from the Nintendo DS, which is an amazing juggernaut of a system for them. And I think that they'd be feeling pretty great if Nintendo Switch, gets to 154 million and kind of is on par with the Nintendo DS. But, I think that generally they're probably feeling pretty happy about the results. Like they're not like freaking out or anything that they're not passing PS2, but I think they're generally feeling pretty confident about, like, we did good this life cycle. We did good.
I do think they can get there. I do think they could pass the PS2. It's not going to happen immediately.
Yeah.
Looking at how many units they're on track to sell this year, and then things are going to slow down once the Switch 2 is out. But, they still have not ever done a price cut on this thing. So that's still on the table to have a system that's on the very low end, very approachable for people who are not going to be getting a Switch 2 right away. So I think it's going to be close, but I think it's definitely still within the realm of possibility, which is a fun thing to keep an eye on over the next months and years.
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to slow down significantly, but could definitely happen. This idea of a price cut is so interesting because they're not going to do any sort of price cutting when this is the only hardware they have in the market. But yeah, once Switch 2 comes out and they start to do that transition, start to get people that want to move over. And then, this becomes like the lower end of their product offering. I can definitely see them doing that. While, trying to get people to move over to the next hardware. And then that will definitely help those numbers creep up a little bit more. So interesting to watch. I definitely think they'll beat DS, no problem.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to probably be like the next financials will be like, we've beaten DS. But yes, unless Sony finds more receipts in the couch or in the trunk.
The ghost of Jim Ryan returns.
Yes, it returns just to tell you that we've sold 170. Actually, we've sold 180. Yes, we'll see what actually happens, but it's pretty funny.
Let's get into the consolidated financial highlights. Dun, dun, dun.
Why did you say it like that?
I regret to inform you that everything is down. Literally every number they have on here has a minus sign. They compare it to the same 3-quarter length of time from the previous fiscal year.
Yes, year over year, as they call it.
Yeah, everything's down, some more significantly than others, but, operating profit down 46%. That's significant. There is still a profit. That's
It's always a
The
profit.
profit's down, but there is still profit.
Yes.
Believe us, from our Wii U days, there were often questions of, did we make any money?
They are very good at, Nintendo has been very good and will remain very good at saving. They're like the really conservative parent that like stows away the money in the bank. They've always been like that, and I think they will always have like money in the bank.
Yes.
So they will have this profit, even though the comparisons are down year over year.
Yeah. And then the net sales are down over 30%. You could say, oh my gosh, that's not great. You could also look at it and say, yeah, that's what happens in this point in the console life cycle.
Yeah. Yeah.
The thing goes up, the thing goes down, and then you need to get the next thing ready, which they're doing. So part of this is, the perfectly normal course of the business that they have been able to stretch out as long as they possibly can.
Yeah, and they have a little bit of experience doing this kind of stretching with the DS, obviously. But I think this is probably one that they've stretched pretty far in terms of, how long this hardware generation has been. We've all been kind of feeling the length in this time period of this hardware generation. So I'm actually not super, I would have been more surprised if there was anything in the positive on the consolidated financial highlights. Because in this time and place for this hardware, this is kind of what you're expecting to see. And Nintendo is, again, one of those companies that even when these percentages are down, they're still making a profit. They still have a lot of money and safety net in the bank, and they are transitioning now. So nothing to worry about. Like, seeing scary red numbers doesn't mean like, oh no, they're going out of business. That's not the case at all. So I'm not super concerned looking at these numbers.
And we should say, we always like to remind people of this. All of these, visuals and data that we get are available to the public on the Nintendo Investor Relations site. Just put that into your search engine and it will take you to a different Nintendo site that has all sorts of information, archival sales data, and we just pull everything off of here.
Yeah, so I actually like looking at the straight Nintendo IR site much more than any news article, honestly, because those headlines can be a little like
the no spin zone.
We got entered in the no spin zone, which is the driest place ever at Nintendo, which is the IR site. But yeah, it's really nice that they just make, and it's in English. They have a ton of information. They have Mr. Furukawa's like remarks translated there. Like they have to publicly share all of this information, so you can get it yourself.
So bookmark that.
Yeah.
Let's move on to this next hunk of data, which is sales status of Nintendo Switch. And everybody's had their eye on the Switch sales this fiscal year because they initially set a target for hardware that everybody thought was a little high.
Yes.
And recently they cut the forecast down to 12.5 million units. And at this point, they've sold 9.5 million units. They said, guess what? We're actually revising it down again to 11 million units, which is still a pretty respectable number at this point in the life cycle. But twice now they've had to come out and admit and say, that first target we had bit off a little bit more than we could chew there.
They have revised it twice now, which is interesting because typically they are aggressive, obviously, with their forecasting. Sometimes they even move the sales targets up if you've met the goal. But in this case, they are kind of reading, I think, getting a little dose of reality here after the holiday season and understanding like, okay, yes, we do need to revise the forecast down. But I mean, they only revised it down by like 1 million units. It's still pretty aggressive. Like, it's not like they cut the forecast in half. It's not like anything like that. So yeah, if they do meet this forecast, that means they will beat the S2. So, we will see.
They also had some software highlights. Mario Party Jamboree, over 6 million. Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, almost at 4 million. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe trucking along, over 5 million sold. And then Switch Sports, kind of an undersung long-term seller in this period, 2.6 million sold. We'll be back to talk about the software in a moment.
Yeah.
But they did find some good news. At this point, I'm sure Mr. Furukawa is reviewing the deck with his CFO. So you're killing me here. Give me some good news.
Got to get some good news.
So they
going
found
here.
some good news, which is that the annual playing users, which is the people who are still actively playing the system,
this
are
is
as
a great
high
chart.
as they have ever been. 129 million active Nintendo Switch players, which is really an incredible achievement. You do see
Yeah.
it is starting to taper off, but the number is still going up. And this was a number that when we were at Nintendo before, there was often a lot of fretting about.
Yes.
Because it's like, oh, well, the sales of the 3DS are pretty good, but a lot of people have just put it down and maybe have forgotten about it. And now we're going to have to do a lot of work to try and bring them back to make them an active player who's actually buying and playing software.
Mm-hmm.
They have been able, through this very active release schedule, to keep people playing and engaged with the system, which is so important.
Yeah, look at this number. It's absolutely incredible. If they've sold 150 million units and 129 million units are people still playing, like that percentage is insane for like a active user. I think this is the best they've ever done. That is exactly what happened during the 3DS DS days when we were at Nintendo. Like, yeah, that system sold really well, as you guys can see from these numbers, but towards the end of its life cycle, it was really not, there was really not a lot of active players anymore, which is quite a different story here. What this indicates too is that it's going to be a little bit hopefully easier to get these active players to transition to Switch 2 as well, because they're already in the ecosystem. They're already, engaging with Nintendo games. They're already like paying attention to what's happening, what Nintendo is releasing. So yeah, if you're like kind of in the world of Nintendo, it's going to be a lot easier to get you to move to the next thing versus you've like put your Switch in a drawer and haven't played, in 2, 3, 4 years. So this really bodes well for them as they transition to the next hardware.
Yes,
generation. Oh, yes,
but we have seen, there was recently a lot of talk about the challenges that Sony had moving their PS4 players, who were also very active, over to the PS5, and several years into the PS5 life cycle. A lot of people were still just playing a PS4. So the people who were just playing Fortnite, Minecraft, aren't necessarily chasing the hot new thing. Nintendo knows this. I'm sure they saw this, and I'm sure they thought long and hard about that. But that will be, today's good news can be tomorrow's hard news. So how they're probably thinking, like, how can we move these people over? All the backwards compatibility news is so great. That definitely helps a lot. But they may need, there are going to be some people who maybe need a little extra something to eventually make the move. They're not all going to do it day one, and they understand that, but I'm sure they have a target in mind for, we'd like to get these people moving over by this point in time.
You better get those Juggernaut Switch 2 exclusive games going, Nintendo.
Well, guess what? Fortnite probably won't run like garbage on the Switch 2, so that'll be a nice little perk for those people.
Yeah.
So software new release highlights. You might say, like, hey, these numbers are different than you had on the previous slide. What gives? So this is sell through versus sell in versus what was actually sold to a end consumer versus sold into, a store.
A retailer, yes.
So again, here, Zelda 3.4 million, Mario Party Jamboree 5.6, Mario and Luigi Brothership at 1.4. What do you make of each of these?
Very typical, honestly, because these titles kind of came out during that holiday season. It's pretty typical to see like a very like kind of mainstream party game like Mario Party Jamboree, featuring all of Nintendo's most iconic characters. Like, makes sense to see that being the lead in out of the three that kind of came out within this holiday season. Zelda is a bit of a niche audience, although of course there has been tremendous growth with the likes of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, but this top-down Zelda game is definitely more for like nostalgic fans. And then Luigi Brothership, this type of game, this kind of RPG title is a bit more niche as well. So I am not surprised at all that the leader of these three is Mario Party Jamboree. And yeah, all of this looks like it makes sense. It is a little bit like, probably a little bit more underwhelming than normal, software sell through in the holiday time frame for Nintendo. But I don't think they're sweating it too much.
If I had to guess, I think Mario Party exceeded their expectations by a bit. I think Zelda was probably right in the mid to low area of their expectations. And I do think Brothership underperformed.
Yeah.
We know that series has a lot of potential, has had some entries that really hit big, but I think in this case, like the word of mouth was just not really positive.
Right.
And we just saw that over, the couple months where that game was coming out and people were playing it, where it was not unanimous acclaim.
Right.
And the reviews were very mixed. And I do think that impacted that. That does make you wonder what this means for the future of this series, for it to come back and, for there not to be all this pent up demand, but for people to be a little bit disappointed. I do get a little bit worried about that. But yeah, everything else is probably right within that realm of expectation. Mario Party, though, we got another little bit of positive news here.
Yeah.
Fastest selling Mario Party game ever. And the previous two were the previous two Mario Party games released. So some really good momentum for the series here. At this point in the life cycle, this is what you see. Like some of these casual games do have the possibility of really going big, because you got all those systems out there. We heard anecdotally, a lot of people who were super active Switch players before, like, well, this is the year that I'm going to get a PS5 and really explore that. So, maybe that super hardcore active fan base was not there in the same way, but you still got a lot of people who want to play a game like a Mario Party, especially during the holiday season. Great time to release a new Mario Party.
Yeah. Can we just go back to that chart where it was comparing Mario Party and Mario Kart for a moment? It's incredible that Mario Party, their best-selling title of the holiday season, is as best-selling as Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which is a title that came out in the very, very beginning, 2017, of the Switch life cycle. This game is just like the caches of cows for Nintendo, and it's incredible to see. It's every time we see the financial report, it is Mario Kart up there with the rest of the new software, which is awesome to see, and like totally makes sense that they would show us a Mario Kart experience, which is a game that hasn't been announced yet, in the Switch 2 trailer, because they know that is going to be a system seller for them. It's so crazy.
Well, okay, fine. We went there with the Switch to Switch 2 and noting the PlayStation challenges. They do need to make the new Mario Kart feel cool and different and better, because you've got, those many dozens of millions of people with the backwards compatibility. It's like, hey, I'm still playing. I'm still liking this. Mario Kart has 1 million courses in it. I know them by heart. I love them. I've been playing this game for over 10 years now.
Yeah.
Some people might need a little bit of a push versus like, I'll just keep playing this. So it is interesting to see how they're going to continue to show the differentiation on that game.
But the potential is there.
Oh, yes.
For this to be like an absolute system seller for Switch 2.
Right.
A Mario Party game is the system seller for them. So they know this. They will concentrate on making that experience like the best Mario Kart ever, which I'm excited about. That's cool.
As far as confirming future software, nothing new here that we didn't already know. Donkey Kong Country, that's already out.
That's out.
Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, that's March 20th for original Nintendo Switch. And then we have Pokemon Legends ZA. I've forgotten the proper way to pronounce this game. It's been a year since I talked about it. I've forgotten. I'm just calling it Zed. And then we have Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, also set for 2025. Nothing said here about platforms.
No.
Nothing said. So those last two games, I do have a question of like, what exactly platforms are we going to see those for? There is a rumored, not confirmed, rumored Nintendo Direct for this month, which would include more Nintendo Switch games. And there are going to be more Nintendo Switch games that come out. You're not just going to turn off the faucet because you got all these active players. The thing's backwards compatible. There's a great reason to keep making and keep releasing Nintendo Switch games. And there's
third parties and indie developers that probably have stuff in the pipe.
Yeah, these are not literally the only 4 games left.
Right. So they're going to need to showcase what those are, and maybe those games eventually will come to Switch too. But they're probably going to release for Switch in the next couple of months. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Finally, those toe-tapping investors are probably wondering, well, what about the Switch 2? Enough about the Switch. We've got our eyes set on the new thing. Yeah. So they did kind of wrap up this presentation with, yes, we announced it. It's still coming out in 2025. And then reconfirming the Nintendo Direct coming on April 2nd.
Not February
4th, which is today. It's not happening today. If you got confused by the European version
European.
It is not April 2nd.
It is April 2nd. It's not February 4th.
No, not today. Today is not April 2nd.
Yourself.
No, I'm confused. And then finally, yes, the Switch 2 experience events are happening starting in April worldwide.
Yeah.
So really just restating some of the information, a very limited version of the information that we already got to appease those investors who maybe get a little forgetful.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, as they often do in Japan, Mr. Furukawa did a couple interviews with some Japanese media outlets to talk about it all. And there are some other little interesting points and details here. He did a conversation with Nikkei and got the question about how Nintendo's going to manage Switch 2 stock. And here's the translated quote. This comes by VGC. They said, "We will take all possible measures based on the experience we have accumulated to date regarding scalpers and the like. We are making preparations." Love to hear that.
Pow!
We are making preparations.
It's like being like earthquake prepared and like packing your little like emergency kit. It has like rope and like, I don't know, some way to like knock out the scalpers. I don't know. But I do think they might be experimenting with some interesting strategies around, pre-orders, around stock. They know that the scalpers are a problem. They know that this is, really a thorn in the side of all of their loyal fans that want to buy and actually play their systems. So they do know. And I'm glad that they've confirmed that they are making preparations, apparently.
Yeah, this is within what they have hinted at previously, so I wouldn't say that this is necessarily entirely new information, but they've acknowledged that there are some issues, and they're looking into ways to mitigate those. I personally still remain concerned about my ability to get a Switch 2 on day one, but we'll wait and see what these preparations actually are.
Yes.
And then also in Sankei, there is another quote from Mr. Furukawa talking about the impact of the Switch 2 announcement on Nintendo Switch sales. He says, "We don't think the impact of refraining from purchasing is that great. We think it's a solid 8th year, but we haven't reached our target. Sales of the Switch will continue as long as there is demand, even after the release of the Switch 2. He's right about that last point there.
Yeah, very true. I mean, again, it's not like a light switch that you just flip off. Like there is that period where both will exist in the market. There could be a price drop. There could be some aggressive bundling by retailers to make it, to kind of get through the rest of that before those people, the transition might take, several years for people. That not everyone's going to be like, day one, I'm getting the Switch 2. So yeah, that is going to have to be a thing that exists and happens over a period of time. And it could be a little longer than people expect, honestly. So yeah.
And as far as the first part of this, again, we have to reiterate, what else is he going to say? He's the head of the company. He's going to say, "Oh yeah, you're right. We're kind of screwed, aren't we? Oh no."
That is the thing that, yes, obviously he's going to have a PR answer for this that's going to make the company look in the best light possible. He's not going to admit publicly after their financials that, oh no, it's over for us now.
He's doing his part.
Yeah, saying, this is his job.
This is still a great item. You should definitely still go buy one if you haven't yet. He's doing what he can to keep the momentum up here.
As long as this thing is for sale, he's going to tell you to buy it. Guess what? He is the head of the company. You're giving him your money.
Yes.
So, yeah, exactly.
So to wrap up with all this, and again, there often are more little quotes and other little info points that come out after. So we're just reacting to this first burst of, what happened during Japan's daytime. Mm-hmm. But just to wrap up this conversation, what do the current state of Switch sales mean for the Switch 2 and the Switch 2 transition?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot about how the monthly active users are so high for Switch. They're still, supporting the system. There's all that backwards compatibility. There's still maybe more games coming out. So that transition is going to happen. Like Nintendo obviously needs to make a decision. Like PlayStation had to make a decision. At some point, you have to sort of cut it off. But the timing of which to do that is really important. Like they really, it's a fine line. You can't cut it off too early because you want to make sure you get as many people to come with you over to the next thing as possible. but you can't do it too late because it just seems like you're never moving over to the next hardware generation. So that's really tough. It's almost like the more successful a system is, the more difficult that transition can be. You've set your bar so high. You have all these people that are still, playing and enjoying the system. But I think that they need to make that decision and do it sooner rather than later to make that move of like, okay, we are now fully supporting this next thing. This is where the latest releases are going to be. This is where the latest experiences are going to be. Move over or else. So that's going to happen, hopefully, sooner rather than later, especially with the softness of the sales.
We should say, the Sony comparison is not apples to apples. The PS5 had one of the strangest launches ever.
Yeah, they didn't have any stock.
In the pandemic, they had no stock. That went on and on and on and on. So they kind of did need to artificially extend that sort of dual approach that they were doing. And by all accounts, again, Nintendo saying that they're preparing to have a big launch and, have a lot out there and get it into the hands of the people that want it the most. That indicates, that transition hopefully will be better than it was for Sony.
Right.
I keep coming back to this backwards compatibility, and we know it will have backwards compatibility, but I think if they can confirm some details like, and your existing Switch library will run better than ever, or, it's going to get upscaled into a higher, that becomes a slam dunk where it's like, never show me this old Switch again. I never want to see that thing again. I need to get the Switch 2 because, there are games that would get a deserving and much needed boost on the Switch 2. So they're in a great position simply having backwards compatibility. But if they can sweeten the pot by some of those other little things, the little bells and whistles, that they can really seal the deal and make people want to move over quickly.
Yeah. And it'll be, it's definitely going to be a financial commitment for people. It's not the Switch 2 is not going to be cheap. So they need to incentivize people as much as possible. So giving them that way to just feel like they're getting the most, they're wringing the most out of, this expensive new hardware. That is a significant way to convince people. The last thing I think on this is they still need to tell us a lot more information about the Switch 2. We don't know a lot of stuff yet. We don't know about the launch games. We don't know about the actual specs. We don't know about the cool, functionality they may have added to the Joy-Con. There's still so much that they have to tell us. And that communication, the way they share that news, the way that they really communicate to us what is different and unique about this new hardware is going to be a make it or break it moment for them. So Switch is so strong. Switch is doing, so well, even late in the life cycle. They do need to have that extra bit of oomph to boost people over to the next thing. So.
Yeah, I thought they showed a bit of restraint even in their Switch 2 section here, because there are some good metrics that they can show of the views of the trailer seem to have exceeded most of the recent generation of consoles and the original Switch trailer. There is more that they could have said hey, we can see there's already a lot of demand for this, and we've said basically nothing. So I think they did play it pretty soft on that, which again may indicate we're very confident we've got even more to come.
Exactly.
Wow.
Well, wow, there you have it. Go Nintendo Switch. Congratulations on making it over 150 million units. It's so amazing. Again, every time I do one of these, I'm just like, what an amazing hardware generation it's been for Nintendo Switch. Just iconic. We're all excited, I think, about what Nintendo has to tell us for Switch 2. But let us know what you think of all of this news coming out of the Nintendo's latest financials. Let us know if you're a numbers nerd and like to look at the IR site. We'll put the IR site in the description so you can go and comb through all the numbers and charts and graphs and things. But tell us in the comments how you guys are feeling about it. And we're going to wrap it up here and talk to you guys later. Bye.
Bye.